All right, guys, I want to talk a little bit about some of the unexpected benefits of budgeting. And I didn't always budget. Maybe you do budget, maybe you haven't budgeted, maybe you've never budgeted, whatever. So the first one is having peace in my marriage with Linda. And this is one of those things I never expected to happen. I had no idea that this was going to happen. But you can think of a budget like an agreement between you and your spouse. And so what normally happens for a lot of us when you don't have a budget is one spouse will go spend money on something that the other one is not interested in or thinks is not a good idea. And then tension arises or fights arise. And so for us, Linda would spend money on clothes that I just didn't think were necessary, or I would go over to Lowe's or Home Depot and spend money on a tool or something that she would think isn't necessary. And both of us individually are thinking, well, we have to pay the bills, we have to pay the groceries, and then he just spent $50 over there at Lowe's on something we don't really need, or me, the same thing with her buying a pair of shoes. And so it inevitably caused some sort of frustration. But when we created a budget and more or less had our plan where we came together and decided this is how we're going to spend our money, it eliminated that tension and there was no more friction there. There were no more surprises and there was no hiding money or trying to hide purchases so that she didn't find out about it. We were clear on what was being spent and we had talked about it and agreed upon it beforehand. And so then it just kind of eliminated all those fights and all that friction and ultimately just led to a whole lot more peace in our marriage. And that's a really good thing. So the second thing that really surprised me was that we actually had more money when we started budgeting, kind of without even trying. And it was so long ago now that I don't remember the exact numbers, but I distinctly remember feeling like, I feel like we have more money. I feel like this is easier just because I was starting to budget. And if you've ever done any food journaling, this was the same thing for me too, where I did a little food journaling and, which is basically just writing down every single thing that you eat. And instantly, just by writing everything down, you begin eating better and you eat fewer of the bad things because you're aware of it and you're conscious of your decisions that you're making. And it's the same way with budgeting. And so funny story here, a few months ago, I finally convinced our senior editor, Lauren, to start budgeting with our recommended budgeting method. And she finally agreed and she did it. And about 6 or 8 weeks after she started, she came to me and said, hey, you're not going to believe this. I spent about $800 less this month than I did the previous month. And I haven't even tried. We didn't even make any major changes. And this is just really common that people will start a budget and just because they're paying attention, they instantly spend way less money than they were before. And this third one was really unexpected and really defies a lot of the myths about budgeting. And that is that you actually have more freedom to spend money. So the reason that almost everybody doesn't budget is they think that it's restrictive, that it's going to take away their freedom. But the reality is that for most of us, it actually creates more freedom. So the way this works is, let's say you have $3,000 a month coming in from your paycheck or whatever. And typically each month you just spend money however you feel, and you're hoping that by the end of the month you still have some money left over. So for most of us, when we spend money this way, we are constantly feeling the pressure of not knowing what's going to happen at the end of the month, and therefore we will say no to all the things that we want to do. So if our kid wants a toy from the grocery store, we feel like, I can't really afford that because I don't know what's going to happen. Or if you want to go on a date night with your spouse, but you're like, I can't really afford a babysitter because I don't know. We're going to have to buy groceries next week and I'm not really sure. Or even buying a gift for somebody where it's like, I'd really like to give them a nice gift, but I'm probably just going to give them a cheaper one because I don't really know what's going to happen. And just living with that unknown is really what strips us of our freedom. So it's not at all the budget. It's the fact that everything is just a jumbled mess and we don't know what's happening when. And that's where the restriction comes from. That's where the chains are. On the other hand, when you designate up front that things are important to you, so maybe that's going on a date twice a month, or maybe that's having money to buy any kind of book that you want to improve your education, or maybe that's money set aside specifically for giving when you find a situation that you want to give into. And when you do this, you find that money is just sitting there waiting to be spent. And so you can spend it without any guilt and without any apprehension of not knowing what's going to happen. And I'll tell you, the first few times I experienced this, it was amazing, where I would see, oh wow, there's $50 in my education fund here, so I'm going to go to Amazon and buy a couple books. Or as we're getting towards the end of the month, I'll find that there's money in our entertainment or date night account, and I'll be like, honey, we can go on a really nice date. We got money just sitting there waiting to be spent specifically for this purpose. And it's really liberating, and it's the complete opposite of what I always thought budgeting was, being this really restrictive thing that was going to take away my freedom. And it actually provides you a whole lot more if you do it right. And the next one on the list is that it provides you a plan to reach your financial goals. And this may not be unexpected, or maybe it is, I'm not really sure, but it is really important because when you have a budget that works, it ensures that you aren't going to spend more money than you earn. And if you don't spend more money than you earn, then you are on the path to financial success. And so see my other video about the seesaw principle for more on this. And it's really exciting when you start to understand how these pieces work together. But ultimately, unless you're in a situation where you have a really high income and you are a person who just naturally doesn't spend much money, then you're going to benefit from having a budget. So anyway, those are my 4 reasons for why I will never not budget and why it will always be a part of how we handle our money in our house. And hopefully maybe I've convinced you just a little bit that budgeting might not be as terrible as you initially believed. And if that is the case and you are looking to get started, I will tell you a little bit about our budgeting course. And it's fairly unconventional and different than anything else I've seen. And the reason that we do it is because it's the most effective way and the simplest and the most likely to succeed kind of method of budgeting that I've ever found, and I've tested and tried a lot. It is far easier to stick with than any of the budgeting software tools I've ever tried, and it doesn't force you to use only cash like the cash envelope system does. And so anyway, if you're interested in checking it out, we will have a link up above. I never know if it's this side or this side, but one of these. So at the time of this recording, enrollment is currently open, and so you can join us, but it might be closed when you watch it, depending on when you're watching it, because we're only going to be opening enrollment probably about 2 times a year. So you can check over at SeedTime.com/RMB. It stands for Real Money Budgeting. That's the name of the course. And so you can learn more about the course over there, or you can get signed up and get enrolled, and we would love to have you with us. But regardless of whether or not you join us in the course, I really hope that you decide that budgeting is something worth trying out and that you give it a go. So that's all for today. Be blessed, be a blessing, and I'll see you next time.